Reform Roadmap 1. Increase accountability and oversight. Establish independent oversight bodies. Create or strengthen independent bodies tasked with overseeing federal agencies, particularly in areas like intelligence, defense, and regulatory enforcement. These bodies should have the authority to investigate misconduct and enforce compliance with laws and regulations. Implement whistleblower protections. Strengthen protections for whistleblowers to encourage the reporting of corruption, abuse of power, and mismanagement within government agencies without fear of retaliation. Regular audits and performance reviews. Conduct regular audits and performance reviews of federal agencies to assess their efficiency, effectiveness, and alignment with public interests. These reviews should be transparent and accessible to the public. 2. Enhance transparency. Transparency in decision-making. Mandate that all significant policy decisions, especially those related to national security, economic policy, and public health, are subject to a public review process. This could include public hearings, published reports, and transparent communication of the decision-making process. Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, reforms. Streamline and strengthen FOIA processes to make it easier for the public and press to obtain information about government activities, reduce exemptions, and increase the speed and responsiveness of government agencies to FOIA requests. Digital platforms for public access. Develop user-friendly digital platforms that provide real-time access to government data, policy decisions, and expenditures. These platforms should be easily navigable and open to public scrutiny. 3. Regulatory reform review and simplify regulations. Conduct a comprehensive review of existing regulations to identify and eliminate outdated, redundant, or overly burdensome rules. Simplify regulatory frameworks to make them more understandable and less costly for businesses and individuals. Cost-benefit analysis requirement. Require that all new regulations undergo a rigorous cost-benefit analysis to ensure that their economic and social benefits outweigh their costs. This analysis should be made public before any new regulation is implemented. Sunset provisions for regulations. Implement sunset provisions for all new regulations, requiring them to be periodically reviewed and reauthorized to remain in effect. This will prevent outdated or ineffective regulations from remaining on the books indefinitely. 4. Decentralization and power redistribution. Shift power to state and local governments. Redistribute certain powers and responsibilities from federal agencies to state and local governments, particularly in areas like education, transportation, and public health. This will allow for more localized decision-making that better reflects the needs and preferences of local populations. Promote federalism and state autonomy. Strengthen the principles of federalism by empowering states to experiment with different policy solutions and regulatory approaches. Encourage interstate collaboration and competition to drive innovation and best practices in governance. 5. Foster public engagement and civic education. Civic education programs. Invest in civic education programs to increase public understanding of government processes, individual rights, and civic responsibilities. Educated citizens are better equipped to hold their government accountable and participate in the democratic process. Public forums and town halls. Encourage regular public forums and town halls where citizens can engage directly with their elected representatives and government officials. These events should be accessible and widely advertised to ensure broad participation. Participatory budgeting and policy development. Introduce participatory budgeting processes and allow for public input on major policy decisions. This approach gives citizens a direct voice in how government funds are allocated and what policies are prioritized. 6. Addressing surveillance and privacy concerns. Reform surveillance laws. Review and reform existing surveillance laws to ensure they are in line with constitutional protections for privacy and civil liberties. Establish clearer guidelines and oversight mechanisms to prevent abuse of surveillance powers. End mass data collection practices. Prohibit or severely limit mass data collection practices by government agencies without proper warrants and oversight. Ensure any data collected is used only for its intended purpose and is securely stored. 7. Implement ethical standards and reduce influence of special interests. Strengthen ethical standards. Enforce strict ethical standards for government officials and employees, including rules against conflicts of interest and the requirement to disclose financial interests and relationships. Limit lobbying and special interests. Reform lobbying laws to limit the influence of special interest groups in government decision-making. This could include banning former government officials from lobbying for a certain period after leaving office and increasing transparency around lobbying activities. Conclusion. The Reform Roadmap provides a comprehensive plan to address the errors and failures of the deep state and the administrative state in America. By increasing accountability, enhancing transparency, reforming regulations, decentralizing power, fostering public engagement, addressing surveillance concerns, and implementing ethical standards, we can create a government that is more responsive, efficient, and aligned with the interests of its citizens. This roadmap is a step toward rebuilding trust in government institutions and ensuring a more balanced approach to governance.